Hello, dear Homypedia family. What if the coolest room in a tiny home was not a bedroom, not a living room, and not even a kitchen, but a quiet courtyard at the center of everything? Imagine opening a small wooden door in the morning and stepping into a tiny Hacienda courtyard washed in soft lime, shaded by climbing vines and touched by the sound of water. The air feels calmer here. The walls are bright, but not harsh. The floor is warm underfoot, yet the shade keeps it gentle. A narrow arch frames the kitchen. Another arch leads toward a sleeping nook. And between them, plants move softly in the breeze, almost as if the home itself is breathing. Today, we are exploring a tiny Hacienda courtyard designed not only for beauty, but for comfort. This is a compact home where shade, limewash, plants, water, and arched openings work together to keep the whole house naturally cooler. It is not about expensive technology or a large footprint. It is about old wisdom, thoughtful placement, and a peaceful rhythm that makes small living feel generous. By the end of this story, you may see the courtyard in a completely different way. Not as leftover outdoor space, not as decoration, but as the quiet heart of a tiny hacienda, helping the home stay cooler, softer, and more deeply connected to nature. So let us step inside slowly, just as the morning light begins to touch the lime-washed walls, and see how this small courtyard can change the feeling of an entire home. The first thing we notice is the shade. In many tiny homes, the biggest challenge is not the lack of space, but the way heat enters and stays trapped. A small room can warm up quickly, especially when sunlight strikes the walls, windows, and roof for hours. But in this tiny hacienda, the courtyard is planned like a protective pause between the sun and the rooms. A simple pergola stretches over part of the courtyard, not covering it completely, but filtering the light. This is important. A fully covered space can feel heavy and dark, while an open space can become too hot. The pergola creates a middle ground. Wooden beams cast long shadows across the floor. Vines soften the edges. It is climate comfort designed through atmosphere. The limewash walls are the next quiet hero. Their soft white and warm cream tones reflect light beautifully, but they do not create the hard glare of glossy paint. Limewash has a mineral softness. It gives the walls depth, variation, and a hand-finished feeling. In a tiny hacienda, this matters because every surface is close to us. We see the walls from the kitchen, from the dining bench, from the bedroom doorway, and from the little reading chair near the arch. Limewash also helps the home feel cooler visually. Color affects how we experience temperature. Deep, heavy walls can make a compact home feel enclosed and warm. But pale lime-washed walls open the courtyard, bounce soft light into the rooms, and reduce the need for harsh artificial lighting during the day. The result is not a cold white box. It is a warm, breathable brightness, softened by terracotta, wood, and plants. Look closely at the wall beside the arch. It is not perfectly flat. There are subtle brush marks, small shadows, and mineral variations. This imperfection is part of the charm. It reminds us that a tiny hacienda does not need to look polished like a showroom. It can feel handmade, aged, and alive. That sense of texture also makes the reflected light feel gentler, almost like the courtyard is wrapped in fabric rather than paint. Now we come to the plants, and this is where the design begins to feel truly restful. Plants are not only placed here for decoration, they are part of the cooling strategy. A small olive tree in a clay pot, jasmine climbing across the pergola, ferns tucked into a shaded corner, rosemary near the kitchen door, and leafy vines along the wall all help soften the heat. They shade surfaces, they hold moisture, they move with the breeze, and perhaps most importantly, they make the air feel less still. In a tiny courtyard, the choice of plants should be thoughtful. We do not want a crowded jungle that blocks movement or traps humidity. Instead, a planting should create layers. Tall, airy greenery near the sunniest side, climbing vines overhead, smaller herbs near the kitchen, a few broad leaves in the deepest shade. This layered planting turns a small outdoor room into a living filter, cooling the mood of the home as much as the air. At the center of the courtyard, there is a very modest water feature. Not a grand fountain, not something noisy or difficult to maintain, but a low clay basin with a small trickle of water. In a warm climate, water can change the emotional temperature of a space immediately. The sound is gentle, The surface catches light. The presence of water makes the courtyard feel refreshed, even before we think about any technical cooling effect. Placed in the shade, the basin becomes a focal point. It draws the eye without overwhelming the courtyard. Around it, the terracotta floor is slightly varied in tone, with handmade tiles that hold the character of sun and clay. A woven chair sits nearby. A folded linen cushion rests on the seat. A small side table holds a glass of water with lemon. These are simple details, but they tell us that the courtyard is used. It is not just photographed, it is lived in. Then we see the arches. In a hacienda, arches are more than style. They shape movement, light, and air. The arched opening from the courtyard into the kitchen allows the room to borrow light without needing a large wall of glass. Another arch leads toward the sleeping area, where a linen curtain can be drawn during the hottest part of the day. A smaller arched niche holds pottery and candles, adding depth without using floor space. This is the secret of small space luxury, not adding more rooms, but making one central space work harder and feel deeper. The courtyard becomes a cooling buffer, a dining room, a garden, a light well, a listening place, and a visual anchor. Instead of depending on square footage, the home depends on relationship. Wall to shade, plant to breeze, water to sound, arch to air, room to courtyard. Lighting also plays a role after sunset. During the day, the courtyard cools the home through shade and reflected light. At night, it changes into a lantern-lit room under the sky. Warm sconces graze the lime-washed walls. A small lantern sits near the water basin. Tiny lights are woven gently through the pergola vines. The goal is not brightness. The goal is glow. This evening glow matters because it extends the usefulness of the courtyard without adding heat or harshness. Instead of turning on strong overhead lights inside, a family can sit outside longer, letting the rooms remain cooler and quieter. The courtyard becomes a place to linger after dinner, to listen to water, to feel the night air, and to let the home settle. For a tiny hacienda, privacy is just as important as cooling. A courtyard can bring in light and air while still protecting the feeling of retreat. The walls are high enough to create shelter, but not so high that the space feels closed. The arches are placed carefully, so views are framed rather than exposed. Plants soften the boundaries. A simple wooden gate adds character. The result is a home that feels inwardly peaceful, almost like a small sanctuary. And perhaps the most beautiful part is that these ideas do not require a large courtyard. Even a very compact space can use the same principles. Shade one side. Choose breathable wall finishes. Add plants in layers. Include a small water sound if possible. create arched or softened openings. Keep the palette natural. Let the courtyard connect to the rooms instead of sitting apart from them. The scale may be small, but the feeling can be expansive. A tiny hacienda courtyard is not trying to impress us with size. It is inviting us to notice comfort in quieter forms. The shadow of a vine on limewash, the coolness near a shaded wall, the sound of water in a clay bowl, the relief of an archway, the way evening air moves through an open door. These are humble details, but together they can shape the whole home. So when we return to the first image, that tiny hacienda courtyard at the center of the home, we understand why it feels so peaceful. It is beautiful, yes, but its beauty is not separate from its purpose. The shade is beautiful because it protects. The limewash is beautiful because it softens the light. The plants are beautiful because they cool and breathe. The water is beautiful because it refreshes the senses. The arches are beautiful because they open the home gently, guiding air, views, and movement. This is the quiet wisdom of hacienda design. It reminds us that comfort does not always have to come from more equipment, more space, or more complexity. Sometimes comfort begins with knowing where the sun falls. Sometimes it begins with a wall that reflects light softly, a vine that throws shade, a small basin of water, or an opening that lets the breeze pass through. For a tiny home, that wisdom is especially precious. Every decision matters. Every surface is felt. Every doorway changes the atmosphere. And when the courtyard is designed with care, it can make the whole home feel calmer, cooler, and more generous than its measurements suggest. If this tiny Hacienda Courtyard gave you ideas for your own home, we would love to know which cooling detail you would choose first. The shaded pergola, the lime-washed walls, the layered plants, the gentle water feature, or the arched openings. Please like this video if you enjoy peaceful home design stories. Subscribe for more tiny home and hacienda inspiration, and share your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, may your home feel cool, calm, and beautifully alive.